I didn't mention my staff. This is unbelievable for the staff and what they've done, and I'm so thankful to be in the star. I don't deserve the credit. I don't care about the critics. I don't even pay attention to that. I really don't. I just know it's really hard to lose in the first round. It stung. It was, as I said, a painful gift. It was so humbling, but it drew me and drew our team closer in a way that we couldn't have gone. Again, the quote we use, I guess I'm full of quotes, but it's from that TED Talk I showed him at the beginning of the year. And I said, and the quote is this: if you learn to use it right, the adversity, it will buy you a ticket to a place you couldn't have gone any other way. And I didn't know if that meant we'd get to a Final Four or do that. I just knew it would deepen us in ways on the court, off the court, and what we believe, and mark us for the right stuff. And that, I think, is what took place.
All right, welcome in to, this is part 13 of Three Level Random. Thanks for everyone for being here. Obviously, I'm really excited for tonight. Again, we got three awesome speakers that I've got to know each on different levels. So really excited. So obviously, just a couple ground rules real quick. We'll let each speaker talk, and then after their share their journey and share what they want to share, we'll take questions for them. If you have questions, just introduce yourself, say your name, where you're from, and if you can, have your camera on when you ask the question, so we can make it as personable as we can. So first up tonight, we've got Pat Moynihan. Take that as you may. You can. I'll let him introduce himself as he wants. He said his mom would call him once, so I don't know if she's watching. So I wanted to make sure we're staying in good with mom. So no, we got Pat Moynihan from App State. Actually, Pat and I, he was a player at North Georgia when I was on staff at Anderson. So we go. I guess that's been over 10 years now. It's crazy. Time flies. So obviously they had some really good teams, and really excited to hear from Pat. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Coach Moynihan.
Dave, thanks for having me on. And your teams were much better than ours. I think we snuck one out, but y'all ended up going to like the Elite Eight in the tournament that year. I don't even think we made the tournament, but glad to be here. And my mom's definitely not on this. I don't think she knows what Zoom is. So I appreciate it, though. I'm Patrick Moynihan. I'm currently an assistant at Appalachian State University under head coach Dustin Kearns. I grew up in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta, in the Alpharetta, Roswell area. I went to school at Centennial High School. Played varsity for 2 years. I was 5'6", 115 my entire life until the end of my junior year. I grew to be 6'5", and so kind of a late bloomer. But I came down after my senior year. I came down to two schools, either University of North Alabama or University of North Georgia. I decided to go up there with my brother, played with him for 2 years. I was redshirted 1 year, and so I really got to play 1 year with my brother. It was an awesome year. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the experience. Like Dave said, we got to play them a couple times. I didn't enjoy that experience, but it was a good time. You know, one thing that I took away from my college career was I probably had a lot more fun than I did, getting better in the gym. And, I've kind of translated that into my coaching because I didn't really have anybody hold me accountable to it. And so one thing I've always tried to do my best is hold these guys accountable and make sure that their work ethic aligns with their dreams. I mean, I wanted to play pro ball, but, my work ethic didn't say that. And so I always try and hold these guys accountable to that. After I got done playing, I actually had the opportunity to go back and work with my old high school coach at Buford High School. And we had a great year, went to the state championship game, and we lost in the state championship game, unfortunately, but it was a very good year for Buford High School because they have always been a football powerhouse. And so to get to the state championship game in basketball was a big deal for them. After that, I coached a year of AAU basketball, which was a lot of fun. Not a lot of preparation. Your scouting report is in watching the layup lines, figure out if a kid can shoot in layup lines or not. But then I was lucky to Coach Champagne at North Alabama offered me a graduate assistant position, which is, just says a lot about him because, even though I decided to go somewhere else, he still invited me into his program to, be a member of his staff. And so I spent 2 years up there as a grad assistant. We had a couple of good years. 1 year, not as good as the next, but the second year was much better. We had it rolling after that. After my second year there, Coach Cunningham down at Troy University had an open graduate assistant position. And, long story short, North Alabama only covered a couple hours. And so if you really want to get your master's degree in 2 years there, you're going to have to pay it for yourself. I didn't have any money. I wasn't going to pay for it. So I told Coach Cunningham, I said, hey, man, if you can get me my master's degree in a year, let's do it. And so he came back, showed me the plan, got it done. And, luckily it all worked out because, we turned a program around from a 9-win team to 22 wins, went to the NCAA tournament. And, I experienced one of the best, seasons of my life. I mean, getting to the tournament was unbelievable. And I learned just an enormous amount from Coach Cunningham and his preparation, his work ethic, everything. After that year, I graduated, got my master's, and so I'm kind of looking around. And I see Coach Kearns gets the job at Presbyterian College. I had heard of Presbyterian College because I recruited against them one time when I was at North Alabama. And so I knew they were Division I, but I didn't realize how big it really was. I was kind of desperate, looking for a spot. And I called up my old AAU coach, Ben Miller, and I said, hey, do you know Dustin Kearns? He goes, I know him very well. He's like, I'll give him a call. I was like, look, I'm looking for anything. I'll be ops there. I don't care. I'm just trying to find a spot. So he calls me back. He goes, hey, they don't have ops. They only have 3 assistant positions. I said, well, that's perfect because that's what I did in North Alabama. I did everything. I'd love to talk to him. He goes, well, he's going to talk to you. So we did 3 phone interviews, went very well. And he offered me the position and he tried to warn me. He goes, now listen, Clinton, South Carolina is a small town. Presbyterian is about 900 people and they've never won. And I said, well, Coach, I've lived in North Alabama. I lived in Troy, Alabama. I said, the small town does not bother me. I said, whatever you're paying me, I can guarantee you it's more than what I've made the last 3 years as a grad assistant. And then I said, my grandfather's built programs. Being a part of Troy, going from 9 wins to 22 wins was an amazing experience. So I'm all in. I said, let's do it. And I knew what Coach had done at Wofford as well. I mean, he'd helped Coach Young build that program. So I was in. It was the best decision of my life. We turned that program around in 2 years. He got the job at Appalachian State. And, I was just, I'm forever thankful for him bringing me along. And, history is writing itself right now. So I've had a unique journey. I'm glad. I look back at every single step I made and happy I did it because everywhere I went, I've learned. And I've just really enjoyed this trip that I've been on and excited to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Pat, you got anything else you want to cover before we take questions?
What was that?
You have anything else you want to cover before we take questions? Or
yeah, so the other thing too, like I've learned along this way is, nothing is certain. I've always been, we operate in it's a field of chaos. I mean, the coaching carousels, games, dealing with kids off the floor. I mean, we're dealing with young men, and so nothing is certain. And if you come into this thinking it's going to be like a 9-to-5 job, you're walking into this field and you're like, hey, I know what I'm going to get every day. You're in for a rude awakening. However, that is what's very fun about it. You never know what might come your way. So there's a there's a saying that Navy SEALs say during Hell Week. It's embrace the suck, because it's going to be terrible. However, with us, I mean, it's more of embrace the chaos. Know it's going to happen. And you know what? Learn to love the journey, because it's just a lot of fun if you take it with that mindset. But if you're expecting, hey, this is going to be the same thing every single day, it's not for you. So be flexible, enjoy what you do, and just enjoy this journey. And last thing I'm going to say is appreciate those around you. Appreciate those that can help you, because you don't get to where you are by yourself. There's so many people along the way that have helped me, and I try to, thank them and appreciate them as much as I can. I mean, I'm not where I'm at without Alan Whitehart going to the AD at Buford High School saying, hey, I need $3,000 to hire this volunteer assistant. Without that, I'm probably not here. I'm not here without Coach Champagne giving me an opportunity, bringing me into his program after I chose not to be a part of it. And so, I'm just forever thankful to Coach Cunningham, Coach Miller with the Atlanta All-Stars. He stuck his neck out for me to give me the job with Coach Kearns. And then Coach Kearns to take a chance on me. I mean, I was a grad assistant for 3 years. I was in high school for 1 year. I had no business being a Division I assistant, but he took a chance on me. And then more importantly, he's, had faith in me to bring me along too. So I'm forever thankful and appreciative of those around you, because you're not where you are. You're not who you are without those people. And so that's probably my biggest thing, is just appreciate those people, because it's never about yourself. It's about those around you, and it's about those kids that you're teaching.
Oh, absolutely. That's really good stuff. So we'll go ahead and kick off our time for questions for Coach Moynihan. Obviously, if anyone has a question, just unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. If you can't have your video on again when you ask your question. I'll start off. Obviously, Pat, you kind of mentioned him just a minute ago, but talk about the influence your grandfather had on your life. Obviously, I don't know if anybody on here, if everybody knows who your grandfather was, but obviously being that close to a Hall of Famer, a legend, talk about the influence that he had on your life.
So my grandfather, Lefty Drizel, he's known as a program builder. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame. It was 2 years ago, actually, coming up on 2 years, actually. Man, I always tell people, when I was born, I was given a basketball, and that was the only option. Like it's been my life. It's everything I've known. But what's funny is my grandfather, and a lot of people might not know this, but my brother's in coaching, and my cousin's in coaching, and my uncle's in coaching. But my grandfather always told us, don't go into coaching, you're stupid. But now that we're in coaching, he's our biggest fan. Being around those guys, seeing him interact with people, and most importantly, the relationships he built with those guys. I was at a Final Four with him when I was in college. It was in Atlanta. I might have just graduated college, but it was in Atlanta, and he was up in his room. It might have been right before he stopped going because he was getting older. But he had 4 players just come up to his room and come say, hey, and sit down and talk with him. And I was sitting in there with him the entire time. And I'm sitting there like, man, this is awesome. Just the connection that he's had with these guys. And it's 30 years later, 40 years later, and they're still wanting to come see him and talk with him. And so that right there was like, I could go get another job and do something else, but am I going to build a connection with guys like that the rest of my life? And so I didn't see that. And I saw an opportunity to impact people the way he did, and not just winning and losing, but to help.
Pat, Jonathan Maddox, Morehead State, kind of following up on that, maybe talk a little bit about what your granddad taught you as far as rebuilding programs, and maybe what you've been able to take into the jobs you've had at Troy, obviously at Presbyterian, and now at App State.
It's funny. I being around him, because I remember him most when he was at Georgia State and growing up around that. All he ever said, because people always asked him, Coach, how you doing it with being a mid-major team, He's like, mid-major? He's like, last time I checked, I got 13 scholarships. Everybody else got 13 scholarships. So I would say that the biggest thing I took away is, you know, you got 13 scholarships. Everybody else got 13 scholarships. Get the best players you can, and then try and guide them along the way. And so he's always harped on recruiting. So, you know, I've done my best to try and put good players in front of Coach Kearns, because Coach Kearns is a heck of a coach and he does a phenomenal job. And, you know, it's up to me and the other assistant coaches to make sure that he's got the right guys to put in the right places to help win games. So he's just watching my grandfather do that and never think of himself as a mid or low major coach was kind of, you know, it's a mindset.
I'm glad you said that, because I remember going to games with you to watch Lefty, and he would always say, you know, everybody calls Georgia State a mid-major. He would always say, I've never been mid anything in my life.
yeah, that's his,
I'm glad you reminded me of that.
Does anyone else have anything they want to ask Coach?
Sure, Pat. This is John D'Angelo from Furman University. You touched on Coach Cunningham for a bit in the journey with Troy from 9 to 22 wins. Is there a particular one or two things that really stuck out from that year that maybe you would see as like undervalued values for most people?
Man, you know, there was so much from that season, and not a lot of people know it was his contract year. It was his fourth year. And his best year to that point had been his first year, and it kind of had gone down since then. And so everybody, even when I got there, I mean, there were just people around town like saying, hey, man, you know, he might not be here. And his approach was probably one of the best, you know, things I've ever seen. He approached that year like it was any other year. He approached that year with the mindset that we're going to win. And he was confident in it. He knew he had pieces, and he never gave up on those guys. There were times in the year when he could have, you know, packed it up and said, hey, no chance. In fact, there was a time in the year that will forever stick with me for the rest of my life, because he called our coaching staff into the meeting room, and it was probably 4 games left in the season. And we had just lost to South Alabama at home, and we got swept by them. So South Alabama, Troy, that's like the big rivalry. He calls us all in. He goes, and I think we might have been like 500. He calls us in and he goes, guys, if the season ended today, we'd all be fired and looking for new jobs. He goes, we got 4 games left in the tournament. What do we have to do to get it right? And so, man, to his credit, and he rallied the guys. We finished those last 4. I think we won 3 of the last 4. So we went into the tournament hot and just won the tournament. And I mean, talk about just an unbelievable run. And it was just such an incredible feeling being a part of that. But just the fact that he wasn't ever going to give up. He prepared every game the same, no matter what it was, whether it was that Sun Belt championship game or whether we actually played Toccoa Falls that year. He prepared exact same for every game, and he wasn't going to give up no matter what the record was.
Patrick, Coach Huff, talk about being able to turn around the job you guys did at Presbyterian. What was the big things that y'all were able to do to get that going there?
Coach, I think you can answer part of that question right there. got a guy named Adam Flagler. He helped a little bit. No, we, you know, Coach Kearns did a great job. I mean, I think us as a staff did a great job of identifying guys that were about the right stuff. If you're at Presbyterian College, not a lot of people know it, but It's not a big school. There's not much to do. Clinton, South Carolina is tiny. You got to have the right guys with the right mindsets. And we were fortunate. Adam Flagler had the right mindset. That kid was in the gym all the time. That's all he cared about. And, we surrounded him with pieces that had that mindset as well. We had a senior point guard who, didn't see a lot of success until we got there. And we just made them believe. We made them believe, and Coach Kearns did a phenomenal job of not letting them have a loser mentality, never letting them get down on themselves. And so we try to keep them up. We try to do it the first year as much as we could. And then the second year with the new group of guys, the young guys, a lot of those guys we recruited were winners in high school. Corey Hightower won a state championship. Chris Martin won a lot in the North Carolina area. Adam Flagler, he took Duluth to new heights. So we brought in a bunch of guys that knew how to win. And our older guys, our returning guys, they just bought into what Coach Kearns' beliefs were, what he was selling. And when that happened, we got it rolling. And if we hadn't gotten the job at App State, I think the next year would have been really good too with those guys coming back. I think they were hungry. All of them were, I'll give them that. All of them were hungry to do something, to win there, to do something that's never happened. And to their credit, they did. They won 20 games, went to a postseason. They set the bar now.
Any other questions for Coach Moynihan?
I got one. Pat, Jalen Butler at Columbus State. You talked about when you got the Presbyterian job, you weren't necessarily ready to be, probably didn't deserve to be a D1 assistant. How did your time as GA at North Alabama kind of prepare you for that spot?
Man, because I was doing everything, man. I was a jack of all trades. I was helping with camps. I was helping with travel. I was helping with recruiting. I was on the floor. I was working guys out. I was doing film sessions. There's one full paid assistant at North Alabama, and then there's one GA. And so everybody's got to do everything. I was breaking down film. We didn't have sports code. We had Turbo and we had PowerPoint. So I was somehow, I can't even remember how I did it, but I was chopping up clips some way or another with that. But, it prepared me because it just made me figure things out. What you don't have in resources isn't an excuse. You just have to figure it out. And that's kind of was Coach Kearns' philosophy at Presbyterian. Hey, our budget there was nothing, but we figured it out. And we found a way for those guys to appreciate what they had. And so, my mentality at North Alabama helped at Presbyterian because, we got creative with what we had, and that helped.
Anyone else?
Hey, Coach.
Go ahead.
Coach, how you doing?
Who's talking?
Good. This is Derek Mullins, head men's basketball coach with Pitt Community College. Listen, when you took over the job, can you give a brief synopsis on how your first 30 days went?
At App State or Presbyterian College? Which one?
Presbyterian College.
Our first 30 days was making sure our guys stayed. We had to build relationships with the guys that we had. So we wanted to make sure that those guys were returning. One thing that was huge with Coach Kearns was we don't want a mass exit. We want to make it look like, hey, this is, we're going to keep it together. So, a lot of that was talking with them. I know Coach Kearns and a couple other assistants were driving up to meet those guys, whether it was in Charlotte or other places. We were calling them on the phone, but, we got them back in the summer and we just wanted to make them believers. So, 30 days was really just implementing our culture and our mindset. And then I think we had 2 scholarships open too. So we were also hitting the ground running and recruiting, we had 3 actually. So we hit the ground running with recruiting and tried to, fill those 3 spots. But we didn't want to run anybody off. We want to make sure everybody was staying, and we want to make sure that we could keep that culture, or we could build that culture.
Anyone else for Coach Moynihan? One. All right, well, shoot. Pat, I appreciate you, brother. Really good stuff. You got anything you want to close with?
No, I mean, thanks for having me, and I'm just really excited to learn from these next 2 guys.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you again, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Next up, we've got Coach Saddi Washington at the University of Michigan. Really excited that Coach came on. Obviously, I have a deep tie to Michigan, but it's not my time, it's his. So really excited to have him on. Obviously, one of the best assistant coaches in the country that is going to be a head coach really soon. So excited for him to come on and share with us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Coach Washington.
Well, David, I appreciate you and for having me on for this conversation, along with Pat and Coach Earl. I know this has been a very unique spring and summer for all of us in the space that we've been in. And so I think this is a beautiful thing that you guys have put together in trying to grow all in our craft. I will give kudos to Coach Pat, though, because, much like the App State football team came into Ann Arbor a few years ago, the boys came into Ann Arbor this season and almost came away with the check and the dub. So I was glad that we were able to hang on because that second half got a little bit dicey for us after getting up in the first half. Young Justin, went bananas on us, and we couldn't keep that boy. And the only thing that saved us was time. They ran out of time. That's the only thing that saved the Wolverines that day. So, kudos to you, Pat, and the job that you guys are doing at App State. A little bit about my journey. Obviously we're all here at different levels, and I think the one thing that's this great about kind of what's going on in our space right now is that we have an opportunity to share our story and really embrace everybody's differences in their path. Coach Pat, just hearing your story, being in, all those little small towns, making, next to nothing. But now, look where you're at. I really appreciate, your journey. And that's one thing that I would really encourage guys to just appreciate your individual journey, because wherever it ends up leading you, you were put on that path for a reason. I grew up in Michigan, went to Western Michigan University, was fortunate enough to play professionally for 7 years. And, in 2005, at the end of that season, really at the middle of that season, but at the end of that season, I started to really think about, do I really want to go back over in Europe and play for another year? Or do I want to come home and transition? And when I would say transition, I didn't even know necessarily that it was going to be into coaching, but, it just kind of morphed that way. It was one of those things where I'm sure a lot like, everybody on this call here, you wanted to give back to the game that gave us so much, right, as young men. And so that was really, my true calling, to be able to give back and pour into the life of student athletes, to help them see this vision of what it means to be a pro, whether it's in the business world or whether it's, continuing to play the game that they love. But then also being or trying to be the best model I could for them as a husband, to my wife, and as a father to my kids. And, like always, we don't always get it right, but, I didn't necessarily have someone who, could help me transition after college was done. And so I felt a real tug on my heart to kind of, give back in that way. My journey actually started at Romulus High School for a young coach named Nate Oates. And so many of you know Coach Oates is now the head coach at the University of Alabama, but I knew Oates way back when we were stopping at McDonald's, after games and having coaches meetings there. And, my wife actually was a teacher in that school district. And I just called Oates on the fly and said, hey, man, I'm a former player. I live here in the area. I would love to, kind of join your staff. And, the rest was kind of history. So my coaching career didn't start at Oakland University. It started at Romulus High School. And then from there, I was there a year. I was able to transition to Oakland University for 10 years with Coach Campy. Had some really successful years there. And during that time, not a lot of people knew that once I got to year 10, I was kind of like at a crossroads in my career. Like I was either ready to figure out how to like move up in the profession, or I was going to get out, because it was just wearing on me, year after year, having, some pretty successful teams. But as many of you know, at the mid-major level, like we were in a one bid league. And so if you didn't win your conference tournament, like that was it. And God bless, the CITs and the CBIs and all the other postseason tournament. Everybody wants to play in the show, right? And so I was fortunate, or we were fortunate enough to make it 2 years to the NCAA tournament of my 10 years. And we had, I think, 7 postseason years. But it was honestly, if I'm being honest, it was really wearing on me. And so, I really made up my mind in that time. But during the course of that, a coach named John Beeline rolled into town, into Ann Arbor. And, I would say it wasn't the most sexy hire, especially for folks in the state. But, one of the things that I did was I really just started to develop a relationship with Coach Beeline, sitting with him at practices when we were out recruiting. And, I really appreciate the fact that he's one of the few coaches that I've come across that really pours into young assistants. Like he doesn't mind having some real authentic conversations with them, getting to know them. Obviously, he was new to the state. It wasn't a real recruiting hotbed for him. So he was always picking my brain. And about, 5 or 6 years into my time at Oakland, he had 2 spots come open. And I was like, we had just won, we had just come off an NCAA tournament run, things were great. He and I had developed a relationship, and I just knew that, man, this was my opportunity to take that next jump. Well, obviously that didn't happen. He ended up hiring good friends of mine, LaValle Jordan and Bakari Alexander, and they had phenomenal careers there. But part of the reason he didn't hire me at the time was because I didn't have what he figured was big man experience. He was looking for a big man coach, and I had never coached the post players. And, I'm thinking to myself, like, wait a minute, I'm a basketball coach. Like, I coach anybody, it's not hard. But it really challenged me personally to really step back and get outside of myself. And so I remember going to Coach Campy that following year, and I was like, look, if there's an opportunity for me to coach the post players, I want to step up to that challenge. And so a couple years went by. One of our other assistants moved on, and he actually was the post because to me, I was like, you know what, Coach is right. I'm not going to be, and I wasn't going to put myself in this situation where I was going to miss out on an opportunity because of something I couldn't do, or what someone perceived that I couldn't do. So I took that as a challenge. So fast forward, 4 or 5 years later, when both Laval and BA ended up getting their head coaching opportunities, I really went into that interviewing process like, you have no choice but to hire me. And it wasn't like in a cocky way, but it was like, look, coach, I've checked all these boxes, that I know that you're looking for. You need an in-state guy, somebody who's been successful, a big man coach. You want me to coach bigs? You want me to coach guy? I can coach midgets if you want me to, just hire me. Like, this is going to be a great thing. And so that was my attitude, but that was my attitude before it even happened. And so I credited him for helping me grow as a coach. And so obviously being on his staff, spent 3 years with Coach, had a great run, couple Big Ten titles, Final Four appearance. And all through that process, our beloved, son, Juwan Howard would come back in the summers and, just talk shop. We would, talk basketball, Heat culture with him. We would share Michigan culture with him. And throughout that process, I was able to develop, a relationship with him, not knowing, a couple years removed, he was going to be the man sitting in that chair next. And, I think that goes to show you, the past and people that you come across, you never know, what that relationship could look like in a few years from now. So being able to now transition with Coach Juwan and, be a part of this new vision of what I call the new blue is exciting. And, obviously we're all disappointed that, our season got cut short, but, it's just been a tremendous growth period for me personally, because in those prior instances with Nate and Campy and Coach Beeline, those programs were already existing. So I walked into an existing program. And even though I was the holdover and I knew Michigan, it gave me an opportunity to what it looks like to walk into a new situation, to try to build or maintain a program from a whole new staff. And so that was really good for me to be able to be a part of that. In terms of, and I want to be compliant here, Dave gave me a very strict timeline. And so, some of the things I think that I would share, with the group, just in terms of, and I don't, with you guys having 13 sessions here, I don't want to be redundant, but, I will say that I think part of my success, my personal success throughout my career, has been my ability to really understand the vision of the guy that I'm working for and just make him look like a star, because at the end of the day, our job is to assist, right? And when you look at the definition of assist, it means to give or support, right? Or an act or actions that help someone else. So you have this servant leadership mentality, because it's not about me, right? It's not my program. I'm here to help you. And in the midst of helping somebody else, if we win and if we're successful, then we all rise up together. And so for me, it was really, really important to be the best teacher that I could be. And I really challenged the group to not look at yourself as as coaches, because I think that's limiting. I think we're in this profession of higher academic learning, right? And so you're just another extension of the university. In fact, one of our foreign guys, he's learning how to drive. And so earlier today, part of our session was teaching him how to park, right? And so imagine going up to the high school around the corner from my house, and we going through all the little, you got to roll in and you got to back in, right? Then you got to pull in and learn how to parallel park. Like, those are all the different hats that we wear as teachers, right? And building and developing these relationships with these young men, because, at the end of the day, like I said, it's our job to assist our bosses. It's our job to make them look like a superstar. we're not trying to be them, right? But, you know, it's that ideal of, you know, we always talk a lot about, you know, a player-led team is better than a coach-led team. Well, I take that same mentality as an assistant, right? I'm always trying to think ahead of my head coach. I'm always trying to, you know, be in his blind spots, because I've been fortunate enough to where my bosses have allowed me to work and allowed me to coach, right? To be a teacher. So whether, and it hasn't been a lot of micromanaging. And so, you know, some of it is trial and error. And, you know, one of the things that I think young coaches get really get caught up on is being a little bit too sensitive, right? When your ideas aren't taken by the head coach. I always say, that's okay. You know, none of your bosses, none of them have hired us to be yes men, right? And so it's our idea to keep shooting ideals at them that fit within what we already do, or, right, try to find a new or more efficient way of doing things that they're comfortable of teaching. Because, you know, much like our wives or our girlfriends or significant other, or husband, or, you know, if we have some women on, your husband do, like, the best way to get somebody to do something is what, right? Is to make them feel like it's their idea. And so we have to become professional ideal planters with our head coaches. And so, you know, it's that mentality of, if they don't take your idea, it's cool. And if it fails, it's cool too. Because either way, whether it's successful or whether it fails, like, that's where the level of trust is built up. And so, you know, staying in your coach's blind spot, and I'm sure Coach Earl, you know, will speak to this more, because he's sitting in that seat. But, you know, when you have player and parent issues, you got to know, like, you got to have a pulse on that, so that when we're in those meetings, you can speak on it, so that, you know, now, you know, your boss can address those things. Or, you know, when the AAU coach or high school coaches are mad at you or mad at the program because their kid isn't playing, he got to know, you know, like, he got to know, so that, you know, collectively, when we walk out of that room, it's always one voice. Because the biggest way to become not successful is to divide and conquer. You know, for you to start, you know, talking about other staff members, or for you to start not, you know, disagreeing with your head coach. It's his program, right? Remember that. Until you're in a position where you're the head coach and you're calling the shots, stay in your lane and make sure your boss looks like a champ, right? And then I would say, you know, the other thing is, be very intentional about the moves that you make and the relationships that you have in this profession. And for me, that's really important. I've had 3 coaching jobs: Romulus, Oakland, and Michigan. Those are only 3 coaching jobs that I've had. And, you know, different strokes for different folks. You know, like, some folks, they don't let any grass grow up under their feet. And you know what? That's okay. But, you know, for me, it's about creating genuine relationships, because when it is time for you to move on, hopefully you have created some vouchers where you're at. And what I mean by vouchers is people who can speak on your character, people who can speak on your body of work, you know, whether it be players, current players, former players, whether it be other administrators, whether it be other coaches within the athletic department. I'm really big on showing support for the other sports teams within our athletic department, because I know at Oakland, for some years, there was this idea like, well, you know, the basketball team, they get everything. Well, you know, they only gonna feel that way unless you befriend them and develop a relationship and go to their games and cheer for them, because somebody always knows somebody, right? And so either whether it's moving up to a higher assistant coach's spot, or, you know, whether it's, you know, being in a position to be a head coach, somebody is always calling somebody with this around you, whether you know it or not. And you need, it's important for people to be able to vouch for you in a positive way. And then the last thing that I will leave the group with before we take questions is just, you know what, at the end of the day, man, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, right? And I know it's a lot of guys, a lot of young guys on here who would do anything to try to fast track, not necessarily in this group, obviously, but out in our basketball community that would try to fast track their community. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, I'm just a believer in things circling back, right? And so we ask our young men to be accountable and to be honest and, you know, work hard and, you know, do all these things right. But if we're not doing that, how hypocritical is that? And so what I've learned being at Michigan is you can be at the top of the mountain, have tremendous success, and do it the right way. And so that's what I would encourage the group to definitely do. So thank you.
Awesome, good stuff. Obviously, we'll open up questions for Coach Washington. Again, just introduce yourself and ask away.
Coach, it's Chuck Harris from Schoolcraft. How you doing?
What's up, Chuck?
Not much, man. Good to see you. Quick question for you. What was the biggest adjustment that you had to make going from a mid-major assistant to a high-major assistant?
Man, I think the biggest adjustment was not allowing yourself to get spread thin, because when you walk in to a gym or you place a phone call, like, we can get in at almost any point of the recruiting process, right? And you can recruit almost anybody you want to at this level. But this idea of being at a buffet, right? If you go, you hungry, you can go and snack on everything. But like, you gotta understand who you are as a person, who you are as a recruiter, right? Keep your core tight in terms of your core recruiting base. You know, so for me would be the Midwest. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, we have done here at Michigan, and we're doing it a little bit different now with Coach Jawam, because I think he wants to go after, you know, some different kids, but the core of who we are is still the same in terms of, you know, like, understanding that the kids that have a unique interest in Michigan are the kids that are the ones that's going to come running through the door. The kids you got to drag across the finish line, they got to be pampered, you know, because they used to being pampered. Like, I mean, that ain't fun either. I don't care what level it is. And so just really understanding that you can recruit everybody, but that doesn't mean everybody needs to be recruited to the University of Michigan.
Appreciate it. Saddi Donnelly, I like everyone calls me Coach G, University of South Dakota. I'm good, you. My question for you will be, you elaborate a little bit on when you were at Oakland for as long as you were and kind of starting to get frustrated with the not being able to advance when you liked. How did you manage that, those emotions you were feeling? And then secondly, you talked about potentially maybe getting out. Why didn't you?
The reason I didn't get out was because I got Michigan. Like, so true story. So going into that last year at Oakland, my wife and I, we sold our house because we were like, all right, if we're gonna make a move, like, it's easier for us to sell now in the fall and then rent. And then if we get another job somewhere, we can rent or buy wherever we go, right? And I don't know if to be honest, I don't know if I would have honestly gotten out, but that was my mentality, right?
Gotcha.
And so I was just ready I was just ready for a new challenge. And it wasn't as if it was anything that was wrong with Oakland, because obviously, you know, working for Coach Kempe, he's been there for 30-something years. I just wanted a new idea. I just wanted a new way of doing things. I wanted to walk into a new office, right? Like the first day that I walked into Michigan, like I had a window for the first time in 10 years. Like that's amazing to me, right? But it was just that, yeah, it was frustrating because we had some really good teams, and we had some really good individual players, and we had some really good teams. And I really enjoyed coaching and helping grow the young man at Oakland and grow the program. But, you know, many of you guys know, like we pour our season into March, and it was like Coach Kempe. I mean, any of you guys who have been around him, he is like the most frank guy you could come across. And he would be like, I don't give a what happens between now and February. We need to be really good for 5 days in March. And that's what it was. And so, you know, those years where we came up short to tough North Dakota State teams, or IUPUI with George Hill, or Oral Roberts teams with Caleb Green. I mean, like, it was some dudes in that league. But it's like, man, it's just such a letdown when you're watching the tournament, and it's like, man, I want to be in the show. I want to be in the show where everybody stops working, you know, on that Thursday, and they don't work again until Monday, right? And I just wanted to be a part of that. And it was physically wearing on me. But it was like every class of kids that you recruit, you feel a bit of a responsibility to like hang in there for them, because that's what it's about. And so that's what it was for me.
Appreciate that.
Saddi, what's going on? This is Akeem Miskadeen, assistant at Florida Atlantic University. Can you talk about the interview process? You got an opportunity to interview for a job this past spring. Can you talk about that process? And if you can you talk about the outcome or your decision?
Well, ironically, I did not interview for the job. I think you're referring to the Western Michigan job. So, like I said, Western Michigan was my alma mater. Coach Hawkins, who I know and love, had some tremendous years there, was let go at the end of it. And ironically, a lot of people just assumed that I was just going to take the job. And to be honest, like, I knew I wasn't taking any job after this year. And, you know, it's one of those things, Akeem, like, I called it a quality of life decision. Because for me, I had made all these different decisions to try to fast track my career and put me in a position to that next step. And yes, I want to be a head coach, but you know, I am a father and I am a husband first. And my daughter, who is going to be a rising senior, right? My wife and I had already decided wherever she starts high school, that she's going to finish there. And yes, Kalamazoo to Ann Arbor is only a couple hours away, but I didn't want to be separated for any time with my family. That was before we're going through what we're going through now, right? With the pandemic, with not knowing when we're going to touch our team. And I'm sure Coach Earl will have a lot to say about this, but like for me, again, going back to being intentional about the moves that we make. I'm on the front end. I'm in a great situation here at Michigan, and it was just something in my gut that was saying, man, we're going into something that's not right here, right? With the beginning of the pandemic, and so I want my first job. I want to stack the deck as much as I can in my favor going into my first job, and that might be naive on my part, but you know, it turned out, I believe, to be the right decision, because without getting into too many of the details, you know, like everybody's taking significant financial hits, right? And so Western is not immune to that. And I just didn't want to put my family through that. Now, I will say I did interview for the Michigan job when it came open. And it was a great experience for me because prior to that, I had only interviewed from an assistant coach's perspective. And if you know our AD, Ward Manuel, he is like the realest dude out there, like great dude, great mentor to us. And he told all of the assistants from the beginning, like, if you're not a legitimate candidate, I'm not going to interview you because I can't waste my time. Now, he made the right decision in hiring Coach Jawan, but that experience of going through that process was really good for my personal preparation, and hopefully the next opportunity will set me up.
Coach Washington, Jonathan Maddox, Morehead State, kind of piggybacking off that, could you talk a little bit about what you've done or what you're doing to prepare yourself to be a head coach? I know you talked about a little bit of learning, to coach the bigs and how that helped you with Coach Beeline. What are you doing to help yourself become a head coach one day?
That's a great question, Jonathan. I think really a couple of things. So now I'm in my 15th year of coaching, and I've done it at the mid-major level. I've done it at the high major level. And so much like Pat, I've really tried to just, I just tried to look at an area every year and get a little bit better in that area. So, early on, it would have been scouting reports or film or, player development. And like, I feel like I've covered a lot of those bases now, sitting in meetings like this, how to develop and work things from an administrative role. I would say the one area that I haven't touched and I really don't want to touch is scheduling. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are in scheduling, but I'm just like, look, one of my assistants is going to handle scheduling. You just, the administration is going to tell me how much money that we need to bring in, and we'll figure it out from there. But short of that, I really just try to, be efficient in my work. But lately, like right now, a couple of things and I haven't done it as much like this summer, but probably like last year and the last couple of years is working on my interviewing skills and, just how to come across from an interviewing standpoint. But then more recently, honestly, like I've really just tried to pour into my family because I don't know, we don't know if we're going to get any time like this again to really pause and spend time with the people who matter the most to us. And it's not your players. It's not your job. It's your wife. It's your kids if you have them. And so for me to be able to get myself back centered, spiritually, physically, I'm sure a lot of you are trying to find different and unique ways to stay in shape. If you aren't, please do, because that's just important. Because if you're not physically healthy or mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, you're no good to the people that need you. And so I would really encourage you to really get dialed in from that perspective.
Coach, Pat Moynihan, App State, you're in a unique situation being there with Beeline and then Juwan Howard taking over a very successful program that had been to multiple Final Fours and all that. Tell me about the transition that Juwan Howard had to go through with almost having to keep that culture, but also wanting to be himself and kind of put his hands on what he saw as his program.
Yeah. So, I'm glad you asked that. And again, for me, having been a part of the Beeline culture, anybody who's come to our practices or sat in meetings, that's a huge part of what we do, especially this time of the year. We fight tooth and nail to make sure our culture is tight. And again, it's being intentional in the recruiting process of the guys who are degree seeking, who appreciate this holistic ideal of being, at a place like the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor and all the benefits that, it comes with that. But we just had a bunch of good dudes. And so not even knowing in that in-between time, well, I should say, once Coach asked me to help him be on staff and help kind of be that transition guy, I put together kind of like a cheat sheet for him in terms of, I went through each individual player, and just wrote out everything that I could about that guy, so that when he had his meetings, right, with the players, he wasn't going in there cold. So the parents' names, their phone numbers, anything that I could put down about the kid, both personally and athletically. So it just gave him some substance to those meetings. Much like yourself, you talked about, keeping the team together. We didn't lose one guy in that transition period. And so for me, like, understanding, man, you got to get on the phone and like call the parents and be on it with your kids, because if you can't keep those guys, it's going to make your job that much harder to build a team. And then just watching him go through this process of, he's Juwan Howard, like he's the original member of he put together the Fab Five. Like, he was the guy that called Chris and Jalen and Jam and I'm forgetting his name now.
Ray Jackson.
Ray. He put that team together, right? But it's like everybody's coming at him, and I'm like, Coach, we got to do this, Coach. And it was unique, Pat, because he was coming back. He was being in this collegiate experience for the first time. It's different, if he was coming from some other institution to the University of Michigan. That world of the NBA and college, like, they're on different levels. And so Coach Phil and I really trying to like help speed up the learning curve from that perspective with Coach Juwan and Coach Isley, and getting them indoctrinated to how things go in at the collegiate level was really good for me. And so, yes, you were mentioning it earlier, Juwan's thing was embracing the suck. Coach Beeline's thing was embracing sudden change. So they had this similar idea of embracing adversity and attacking it from that standpoint. So I'm glad you brought that up.
That's awesome.
Hey, Coach, is Justin from Justin Bradley from Dartmouth College.
Hey, Justin.
How you doing? Can you talk a little bit about your relationship and with Phil Martelli being on staff, such a former, very successful head coach, and then you have Juwan transitioning to the college game. Phil Martelli's done it for many years, and obviously you had a lot of responsibility for Coach Beeline. Can you just talk about that dynamic in the relationship?
Man, we call Coach Phil the Godfather around Ann Arbor, son. Like, Coach Phil knows everybody. And I think I really applaud Coach Juwan for the staff that he put together, because one of his big things was folks being egoless. And for Coach Phil to be doing it at a high level, for as many years that he has as a head coach, you would never know that man had went to the Final Four and was a head coach for over 26 years because of his humility and his willingness to just want to be a part of the team. And, as much as I know that it sucked for him to be let go at St. Joe's, and all the relationships that he's built up there, I really think that this move really kind of re-energized him, because he's been awesome to work with, as well as, Coach H and Coach Juwan. I just really, this might be the best staff in terms of our ability to work with one another. Nobody like feeling like they have to be the guy, nobody's worried about titles. It's like, look, how can we help Coach be the best version of himself so that we can get back to a Monday night, right? That's everybody's mentality. Coach Phil has been to a Final Four. Coach Juwan played in a Monday night and won a world championship. Howard Isley played high major ball, played in a world championship game. This program is centered on winning, and that's where everybody's focus is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coach Washington, Coach Tucker from Cambridge South Dorchester High School. Can you talk about the fact you guys started off strong out the gates, and then you kind of had like a lull, and then you picked it back up? Just talk about like some day-to-day things that y'all would kind of like reiterate. Just talk about the process, and just talk about how you maintain guys' spirits, and you kept like the focus, like we're going to get this thing turned back around.
Yeah. So, I think one of the beautiful things about our team this year was that, and I can honestly say this, like at no point in my time at Michigan would I say that's a championship team. Like just person to person, man to man, it was always, it had to be total buy-in from everybody. Like we didn't have just these dominant players, individual players, but collectively, we could figure some stuff out and be really, really good. And I think that was what the beauty of what Coach walked into was. He just had a bunch of dudes that understood how to work. And, it was funny because when we were going through the recruiting process this time last year, we were in on a lot of kids, but a lot of the higher level kids were kind of like, pushing us back because they don't know what it's like, like we didn't have, Coach Juwan didn't have a body of work at Michigan to say, this is what Michigan is going to look like. But man, after the Bahamas, man, right? Everybody's like, yo, I knew y'all was good. Man, be quiet. Like, like the dude has been interviewed for like several NBA jobs. So he knows what the hell he's doing, right? And so it just blew my mind, like this idea that like, okay, yeah, he's a first year head coach, but like, he didn't just wake up into coaching school and like given this job. He earned that stuff, right? And so when we went to the Bahamas, it was just an extension of where we were last year, and it was because of our leadership in the locker room. And the low really came when Isaiah Livers got hurt. Like we were rolling, and unfortunately, he got hurt like right before Christmas break, and that really carried over to the first 5 weeks of Big Ten play. And, the Big Ten was just a beast this year. And so it wasn't any nights off in the Big Ten. But as we got healthy and Isaiah kind of got back into form, we were really excited about going into the Big Ten tournament and our opportunities there, and then carrying that momentum into the NCAA tournament. So, I guess to answer your question, what we did in the in-between time, and I learned this from Coach Juwan, he was really, really good about this. And I say he was the right guy for this year's team. And that's like not throwing any kind of shade on Coach Beeline, but this team needed Coach Juwan's temperament. Like they needed his poise, because he was always like, we would go into our meetings, he would, look, we ain't talking about problems right now. Let's talk about solutions. And just the idea of saying, let's talk about solutions, it was like a mental shift in the way we communicated with one another in those meetings. And were we probably still talking about the problem? Yes, but we were more focused on fixing it and not wasting time on the problems. And so I think that's what kind of sped up our ability to kind of get through some of that stuff.
Cool, appreciate it.
So focus on the solutions. Don't be the water cooler guy. Man, coach ain't shit. He don't know what he talking about. This shit ain't working. Like, nah, don't be that dude. Like, we all in this together. Focus on the solutions. These are some really good questions, by the way.
Anybody else? We got time for one or two more, if anyone has one.
Dave, can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
What's up, Coach Washington? My name is Caleb Koopa. I'm an assistant at the Westtown School in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Caleb, how are you?
Great. How about yourself?
Good.
I just wanted to ask you, in working with Coach Howard the past year, what's one lesson that you've learned on the basketball court, as well as one lesson that you've learned off the court from him?
I think on the court, he is really good ATO guy. Like, and I think that NBA mentality, like, so he has always a script of plays of actions that he wants to run out of ATOs. And I had never really even thought about, like, yeah, just have a group of plays. So let me back up a little bit to answer your question. So with Coach Beeline is the master CEO, and we like prepared, rehearse, prepared, rehearse, prepare, rehearse. And I saw Darius on the line, and I don't know if he's still on, but he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Brian Smothers, if he's still on, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So we would, like, in our pregame, we would freaking go over like 20 plays and probably run like 7 of them joints, but we was gonna go over 20 new plays every game, right? So, but to Coach Jawan's credit, like, we would do ATOs that we hadn't even practiced before. So guys just like really had to be dialed in, and it showed me that, you know what, you could execute some stuff if you got the right group of guys. And so that was what that's what I really learned from him on the court. Off the court, in addition to really steering your staff back to finding solutions, was like, he's a very poised decision maker. And so he's not like one that's gonna like be rushed to feel like he has to make a decision. But like, once he gathers the information, he's really good at just the timing of his decision making. So whether it's in recruiting, whether it's, you know, some administrative stuff, whether it's, you know, something that's going on with our guys, like, he's a really poised decision maker. And I feel like he and I share very similar personalities in that standpoint. So I was able to learn that from him.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Dave, I got a question. Do we have time for one more?
Yep, go ahead, John. This will be the last one.
Gotcha. Hey, Coach, Jonathan Finkel here. Obviously, being at the high major level, you've experienced the transition between Coach Beeline and now Coach Howard. What's kind of the recruiting like? You know, you have your pitch for Coach Beeline, and like you said before, Coach Howard has a NBA, you know, timeline of career, but now he's coaching in the college level. So what's kind of your Juwan Howard pitch when you're recruiting to kind of separate yourselves?
You know what? It really is. It's really not that different. You know, like we always say, it's Michigan. Like, it ain't hard to sell Michigan. Like, it's the best blend of academic and athletic excellence anywhere in the country. And so if guys are really interested in that, then Michigan is the place for them. Now, do we probably go after more kids who, there was this myth, right, that Coach Beeline didn't want 5-star kids. That wasn't true, right? The thing was, he wanted dudes that were into Michigan before they were into being in the pros. And so there's this fine line of that. But, you know, you still have to have kids that can cut it academically. Coach is huge on family. And so you can't compromise your locker room by bringing some idiots in, right? And so if it's going to be a lot of drama surrounding that recruitment, we're probably not going to be in it. And so the beauty of being at a place like Michigan, you can recruit a lot of high-level dudes that are focused on winning. And yes, they want to be at the next level. Like, we want what they want. And so we do everything we can to put them in position to get that. But it got to be centered around the team first. And because of our team success, then everybody can have some individual success. So thank you, Dave. Thank you guys for the questions. I'm excited to hear what Coach Earl has to say, and appreciate you again for allowing me to share in this conversation with Pat and Coach Earl. So thanks, David.
Absolutely. Coach Washington, thank you for coming on. I think we all got a lot of good notes and good insight from you. So thank you again for coming on. Last up tonight, we have Coach Earl Grant, head coach at College of Charleston. I've gotten the pleasure of knowing Coach Grant for a few years, dating back to his time at Clemson and obviously now at Charleston. So I'm really excited that he gave up some of his time to come on and share with us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Coach Grant.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me. I'm out on my patio tonight, so if I end up changing my locations, it's raining back here on my patio, my screened-in patio. If it get a little too loud, I might have to move in the house, so I got my backup plan. But this is my office. This is my element, so hopefully I can stay out here. But I wanted just to, reiterate a few things that I thought Pat and Saddi said that was interesting before I get into my journey. I think Pat said something that was critical. When you get a chance to be an assistant at a Division II school at a young age or early part of your career, I think there's some lessons and some things that you learn, man, that just are invaluable. And so my journey started at Georgia College in Milledgeville, Georgia. Obviously, that was the first job I ever had. And like Pat was saying, man, you got a head coach, you got a assistant coach, and the GA is like the operations guy. He's like the second assistant. There's a lot of responsibility that falls on your plate. You running the camps. There's a lot of relationships you're going to build because of that. And I just think, guys who have an opportunity to coach Division II, especially if there's any young coaches on the call, man, don't shy away from it. Because when I talk to young assistants, especially when they're really getting into the profession, I said, man, hey, what do you think about Division II? And they kind of frown upon it. And I think for me, playing junior college basketball, playing Division II, for a lot of part of my first 8 years in my career, I just wanted to be a head coach D2 and head coach JUCO. I wanted to try to go win a national championship with maybe a South Plains or, maybe win a national D2 championship with Florida Southern, USC Aiken. So that was my thoughts because of the humble beginnings. So I think young guys who can work Division II early, don't frown upon it. You'll get so much better. You'll get a chance to develop. So when you do become a Division I assistant, you've done so many things that you're going to be very valuable for that staff. And then Sal, you said something, that touched my heart pretty good too, because, I've been an assistant coach for 15 years. So I kind of have figured out what it was to be a good assistant. So now I'm trying to figure out how to be a good head coach. But what he said is, man, you got to be a servant. You got to have a subservient attitude. Like no job too big, no job too little. You don't worry about the other guys on the staff. You're not worried about title. And you're trying to make your head coach look great. And I think for me, I only worked for 3 different head coaches in Division I, Pat Dennis at the Citadel, Greg Marshall at Winthrop and Wichita State, and then Brad Vanell at Clemson. And all I wanted to do was try to get them guys an extension. And all those guys got an extension except one. At the Citadel. I left. I wasn't there but 2 years, so I wasn't there long enough to really make an impact like I wanted to. But those guys got extensions. And because they got an extension, I can keep my job. And because they got an extension and we were winning, there was attention coming to our program. So therefore, most times they're going to look and say, well, who's his assistants? So, that servant attitude, man, of just serving your staff and serving your assistants and the players and doing all you can, I think is so critical. My journey started, man, like I said, in 2000. I was in Milledgeville, Georgia. It really started that summer. I wasn't sure what I was going to do after I graduated college. I had one opportunity to go play pro ball over in Croatia. At the time, there was a lot going on in Europe and in the Middle East and different things. And so I wasn't getting on the airplane. I'd only flown one time. That was that same year, my senior year. We made it to the NCAA Elite Eight. Went to Louisville, first time I ever flew. So I wasn't going to get on a plane to fly and go play pro ball in Croatia. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Got a couple of jobs that summer, got a security job at a Days Inn. So I was 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'm out there with a security badge on and a pair of police pants and a pair of boots. And it's in my hometown of Charleston now. So, guys arrive by and say, man, what you doing out there? You got a degree. What you doing working as a security guard? And then I had another job as a maintenance man at a Courtyard Marriott. And so my dad had taught me, man, you know, time is money. You got to work. A man got to work. So you can be home this summer, but like you can't sleep in the house past 9. So I got a couple of jobs, started working. When I did that, I had an old Cutlass Sierra car I had bought for $500 in college. And, you know, it was a local car. You can go 10, 15 miles. It's good. You went past that, man, 30, 40 miles, it's going to be smoking. So one day I drove on to the Chevy dealership, man. And after working the security job and the maintenance job for like 3 months that summer, or maybe 2.5 months, I got about $2,500 saved, and went and bought me a brand new 2000 Chevy Cavalier, man. As soon as I did that, I drove to Maryland, go work University of Maryland camp. I drove to Summit, Mississippi to work Dixie basketball camp. Guy Joe Dean and Joe Dean Sr. One was the AD at Birmingham Southern. One was the AD at LSU. I went to work that camp. I went to work UT Chattanooga with, I think at the time, at Tennessee Tech, actually was the time it was Coach Lebo. You know, I went to Bobby Huggins in Cincinnati. I went to the Citadel. I went to the College of Charleston. And at the time, I was trying to get to the next camp so quick, I never got my check. So they were always mailing my check to me like, Coach, you know, you didn't get your check. But I had to get to the next city. And so I really didn't know what was going on in me. I wasn't a coach yet. I thought about going into the Air Force right after that last camp. I was driving from Mississippi and got back to Charleston on a Sunday. And Monday, I was in the Air Force recruiting office. And on Tuesday, no cell phone, no social media. I get a call from my college coach, Terry Sellers. This after a full summer, I'm not talking to him. And it's amazing. When he called me, he said, hey, just curious what you're trying to do. Didn't know if you were going to go play ball overseas, but I've talked to the AD. I've talked to the president. We don't have a GA because we got the guy coming back as a second-year GA, but the president and the AD said, if you coming back, they'll make a second GA. And that was the first time, man, I realized that, you know, people watching and paying attention to what you do. So whether you are a player for a coach or whether you're an assistant for a guy, I just think people watching you. Like, for example, simple assignments. If I tell my assistants, my 3 assistants, and I keep it real plain, hey, I want you to do a project for me. I want you to study these 3 teams, Gonzaga, Stephen F. Austin, and, you know, New Mexico State. Look at their early offense, show me what you got, kind of come up with a report and then present it to the staff. That's all I got to say. But their work they bring back to me, I'm paying attention. So if a guy bring me a 1.5 page assignment and he didn't put a lot of effort into it, I give him 3 weeks, and another guy come with a great presentation, that does something for me. And it does something if your head coach or whoever you work for give you an assignment, the work you bring back does something. So I think I learned at, you know, getting that job at Georgia College as a graduate assistant right then that, man, you know, coach was paying attention to my actions. And obviously there was something that I did that they caught his attention. So got the job at Georgia College, did it for 2 years. And then after my second year, I remember I was working a job at the Hampton Inn. I was a front desk guy at the Hampton Inn. Somehow I kept these hotel jobs because I wasn't making but $3,000 for the year. And they gave me a little house on campus. I had to pay $200 a month. So I had my $200 a month bill, and I had my $300 car, my brand new Chevrolet bill. So I had to make some money. So I was working at Marriott as a front desk, but I also was a GA. So I remember there was a big camp in Milledgeville, Georgia, in Baldwin, at the Baldwin Rec Center. And all these coaches was coming to this event. And so, you know, I would go over there, and I was a young guy, so I had no idea about how my appearance looked. You know, I remember I had on some jean shorts and a wife beater, some Air Force One, you know, Nikes. And so I go over to the event, and I'm watching these kids, and I'm evaluating as a graduate assistant. And I run into Ed Conroy, and I run into Mike Hopkins, who was at Coastal Carolina at the time. And, you know, I'm just running into these different coaches, John Schumann, and, you know, I'm shaking guys' hands. Hey, how you doing, Earl? Good to see you, Greg Marshall. And so all of a sudden, I had to leave the event because I had to go work the front desk at the Marriott. So I leave the event, change, put my shirt and tie on, go work the Marriott job. And here comes an assistant, Mike Hopkins. He was an assistant at the Citadel at the time. He came in to check in. He said, hey, man, what you doing? I just saw you in the gym watching players. What you doing over here at the hotel? And I said, well, hey, look, I'm trying to finish my master's, and I got this. They ain't paying me no money, so I got this Marriott job just to kind of make ends meet. And this is what he told me. He said, hey, man, now he had recruited me when he was at Coastal Carolina when I was in junior college, okay? And so we had a little bit of a relationship, so I knew Mike. But Mike said, hey, I'm taking a job at Virginia Tech, man, so there's going to be an opening at the Citadel. He said, you want the job? And I said, yeah, man, I want the job. I want the job. If you can help me. I said, I got 2 more courses to finish my master's, but, man, if you can help me, I want the job. And here's another lesson I learned right there, okay? A week later, I got a call from Pat Dennis. He was the head coach of the Citadel. He brought me down for an interview. I didn't have a suit, didn't have anything, didn't have a resume. I was kind of young and green, didn't know exactly what was going on. I went and bought a suit for about $85 from a mall over in Macon, Georgia. And I laugh now when I think back on that suit because it didn't fit. But I went and bought a suit, really didn't have one, and didn't have my resume. So I drove from Milledgeville to Charleston, went to a library, typed up some stuff, really got prepared, went into the meeting with Pat Dennis. He never asked for a resume, never really interviewed me. He said, hey, you want the job? Now, he recruited me out of high school. He did a home visit with me. He was in my living room. When he called me as a player and said, hey, can you come downtown to play pickup with our guys? I always returned his calls. I always got back to him. I never big time him, even though I knew I wasn't going to the Citadel to play ball. And so that was another lesson. He hired me. I didn't interview. It was a relationship, me returning calls, me respecting, him when he reached out to me as a prospect, and again, got that job. So did it for 2 years, and I'll fast forward you right to the second year. At the time, again, subservient attitude. I'm running the camps, okay, to the point where, and this for some of you young assistants, and I know Pat and Saddi and some of you guys already done some of this stuff. Probably Jonathan, a lot of guys on this call probably done some of this stuff. So I'm running the camp. He would tell me, we had a big time camp, 4 sessions and about 250 kids. And he would tell me, hey, here's the kids that want to be on team with each other. So I need you to stay up, make sure you take care. I want all these, here's a different request for guys who want to be on the team. And I'll stay up all night, don't get no sleep, just trying to make sure I got the right guys on the team. I would sweep the gym after the camp was over. I was recruiting. I wasn't making but $8,000 then. But, that subservient attitude of how can I help this guy win? And I remember we recruited a kid named Warren McClendon from Dublin, Georgia, 3A state player of the year. We'd already had him committed early. We beat George Mason for him. And I remember Bill Courtney, and he was on official visit, and Bill Courtney and the guy from Louisiana Tech, the head coach over at Conkle. I remember seeing him in Charleston when that kid was on his official visit. I still laugh with them about that. But we beat George Mason for him, and that was a big get for us. And after he committed, Georgia, Dennis Felton just got the job. They tried to get him out of his commitment. He stayed firm. And we got another kid, Demetrius Nelson, a local kid from Charleston. I tell you that to say one of the things that I learned in that year was how leverage can help you as an assistant. And what I mean by that is this. We signed these 2 players. I was the lead recruiter on both. Me and a guy named Chris Gurlifson really worked on the kid from Dublin. We did that together. He's at Hawaii now as an assistant. But here's what I learned from that situation. Pat Dennis came in. I was the 3rd assistant, making $8,000 restricted earnings and doing all the camps, sweeping the gym, doing all this stuff. So we had an opening pop up for the 2nd assistant. Now, the 2nd assistant from the 3rd assistant would go from $8,000 and no benefits to $30,000 in full benefits in a car and a phone. Okay, so that was a big jump if I could get the car, the phone, the benefits, and a $22,000 raise. So he was bringing in different guys to interview. We had camp during the time, so we were bringing these guys in to interview for the 2nd assistant, and he never said anything to me. And so, I was about to go on vacation, and I got to tell you this story because it's critical. I was about to go on vacation with my fiance and with my wife now, and I said, Coach, hey, can we meet before I take off to go on the road? Because I wasn't feeling appreciated at all. And he said, yeah, that's fine. What's going on, Earl? I said, hey, man, you've been telling us it's the best recruiting class we've ever had. I've led on 2 of these kids. And, we brought on all these guys to interview for the job. And you haven't talked about me going from 3rd to 2nd assistant yet. Can we talk about that? And he said, hey, look, we'll talk about it. I'm going to give you more money. I don't know if I'm going to give you full benefits and the whole package because I might have to get an older guy, but, you guys doing a great job. So I go on vacation. And in 4 days on the vacation, by the time I come back, here's what transpired. I'm driving back from Cocoa Beach, and I get a call from Stacy Palmore. And Stacy Palmore was at the College of Charleston. He said, hey, I'm leaving to go to Virginia Tech. Something was about this Virginia Tech job. And he said, I'm leaving to go to Virginia Tech. Seth Greenberg hired me. He gave me the job. And just letting you know, man, I don't know if you can get involved coming from the Citadel to College of Charleston, but just letting you know, nobody doesn't know this. Maybe you can do some work. I got no traction on that job, had no chance to get it. Tommy Herian, he wouldn't talk to me about the job, so I was fine with that. So the other job, he said, but you may not be able to get College of Charleston, but Wofford's open. So I knew Mike Young, so I tried to get the job with Mike Young. I didn't get it. He hired another guy. So I'm almost back in Charleston, okay? And I get a call from Randy Peel. And he said, hey, Earl, Randy Peel here, Winthrop. Greg Marshall wanted me to call you, gauge your interest on the job. And I said, hey, look, I think I'm about to get bumped up to second assistant at Citadel. I'm going to talk to Pat when I get back in the office. I said, but tell Greg to call Pat because I don't want Pat to feel like I'm working behind his back. And that was a big thing for me. Anytime a job came open, I never worked behind my boss' back. I don't want my boss to hear from somebody else about a job that I'm involved with. So I said, I told Randy Peel, please tell Greg to call Pat. So he called Pat. I get in the office Monday. So I get in the office Monday. This is about leverage right here, okay? And he went from saying, hey, can't bump you up to the second assistant and give you the full benefits. We may need somebody older. But now Greg had called him. So he went from that story before I went on the trip 4 days prior to now telling me, hey, I talked to Les Robinson, our AD. Man, I got a great situation. I can get you 5,000 more than I thought I can get you. I can get you 35,000. I'm gonna give you the full benefits, car, phone, everything. And that didn't sit well with my spirit. If he would have bumped me up to the second position right away, I might have would have stayed in Charleston because I loved Charleston at the time, and I was young, and I was living downtown, and we had recruited well. I might have would have stayed, but because of the way it went, and Greg Marshall was calling me saying, hey, I went to Pat Dennis. I said, hey, Greg's saying 35, man. 37.5. So Pat said, well, I'm gonna get it up to 40. And it was like a bidding war. And so finally I left to go to Winthrop. And it really wasn't about the money, but I learned right there, man, if somebody, don't look for jobs, but if somebody else trying to get you, then your boss has capability of giving you more to keep you. And I learned that. So I go to Winthrop. And man, wow, did Greg Marshall turn my career around? I go to Winthrop, we go to 3 NCAA tournaments, back to back to back. We played Gonzaga one year, we played Notre Dame one year, beat them in the tournament, played Tennessee, had them on the ropes. A guy named Chris Lofton hit a shot at the buzzer to beat us by 1. And he just turned my career around, man, but he was really stern, he was real. Now relationships. I met him when I was a junior in high school playing midnight basketball in a park in the inner city of Charleston, South Carolina. He was an assistant for John Kress at the College of Charleston when I saw him on that park. We stayed in touch. Man, staying in touch is critical. Sending a note, a quick little phone call. I'm telling you, staying in touch, sending a note, making a quick phone call, shooting a quick email, and it might feel like people would say, well, I feel like I'm kissing up the guys by doing that. Now, I'm telling you, if you just send an email once every month and a letter once every month and a phone call 4 times a year, and you just pick 10 guys and do that, that go a long way. I don't care if it's AAU coach, college coach, whatever. So staying in touch, those relationships critical. So I do that with Greg, man, and Greg really flipped my career. We left Winthrop, and actually, I worked at the College of Charleston one day because he took the job at the College of Charleston when I was at Winthrop, and we worked it for one day. And he changed his mind, so he hired me at the College of Charleston. Then he changed his mind, and then we went back to Winthrop. The next year, we went to Wichita State. I was the only assistant that went with him, and Randy Peel got the head coaching job at Winthrop, and he kept Paul Molinari with him, and me and Greg go out, and wow, what a whirlwind. that was, first day of the job at Wichita State was the same day as the Virginia Tech massacre. And so that's when all the shootings happened at Virginia Tech. That same day, me and Greg, we go see a committed player that had signed with Mark Turgeon. We were trying to hold on to the recruiting class, kind of like Pat alluded to when they had first got the job at Presbyterian, just trying to make sure nobody leave. So we're trying to hold on to the recruiting class. They had 5 great players they had committed. And so we go see the first kid at New Hampton Prep. He's playing pickup. He played the first game. He run up and down the court. We love him. Me and Greg like, man, we don't get guys like this at Winthrop. This is big time. We're going to be able to help this kid. Second pickup game, he backpedaling down the court. He died. He had a heart attack right in front of us. So we went from there to D.C. Try to get to D.C. We're on a private plane, rocky plane. We've never been on a private plane before. So it's rocky, it's turbulence. We go to D.C. We're going into the projects to see this next kid. He decommitted, went to Quinnipiac, but we couldn't get on the phone with his AAU coach. We were late. So that blew up. Next morning, we flew to Big Springs, Texas, Howard Big Springs. Had a big player committed. He decommitted, went to Illinois State. So the whole class decommitted. We had one guy standing, was a Mormon, a kid coming off a Mormon mission who hadn't touched a basketball in 2 years. And he was the only guy to stay with us, a white kid named Graham Hatch, who ended up helping us turn that program around. But I'm gonna just fast forward to right before Clemson, or right Clemson to Charleston. Got to Clemson. Didn't know Brad Burnell at all. Relationships, Dick Bender. Dick Bender called me. Will Small called me. And Dick Bender called me. Will Small and Dick Bender had just got fired at Tulane. It's always the assistant coach. If you're an assistant coach trying to get a job, the head coach ain't hiring you. It's an assistant on the staff that's going to hire you. He's with the coach every day. So Dick Bender recruited me when he was an assistant at Radford. Okay, we dealt with him the right way, stayed in touch. When we were on the road together, we sit together, talk a little bit. For about 12 years, we had a relationship. And he called me and said, hey, look, Brad is looking for a guy in the South. I said, Dick, I'm not leaving Wichita, man. We went 9-25. We went 17-17. We were 25-10, man. I don't know if I can leave, man. We about to be really, really good. We got players coming, man. And he said, well, Earl, can you please just talk to Brad? I said, well, I'll talk to Brad. So I talked to Brad, and they convinced me to come on a recruiting visit or an interview. And so I fly down and, talk to Brad, same thing. I'm prepared for an interview. No interview. We just talk about family, talk about basketball. That night, he asked me, you ready to be a Tiger? And I'd already told Greg Marshall, I'm going to come back and talk to you before I make any decision. And I took the job and didn't go back to Wichita for 14 days. Just got right on the road. And, they calling me to get the courtesy call. They calling me from McKee's for the courtesy call. They want my cell phone. But things just happened, man, quick. And I was very fortunate, man, very fortunate. Let me tell y'all this, guys. So let me tell you, that's all the assistant stuff. Now, this one from assistant to the head coach, man, let me tell you, God is real. God is real because, College at Charleston is an unbelievable job. It's an unbelievable place to live. I grew up here. I'm going on year 7, and it's hard for me to believe that. We won, in the last 4 years, we won 90 games. We got our third guy probably about to get drafted. We got a guy might get drafted first round. I had no idea them guys were going to get drafted. These guys getting drafted who didn't even get recruited. This diamond in the rough, we developed them. And third guy we coming up on about to get drafted. And so I've been very, very fortunate. Now, here's what I'll say. Oh, man, in terms of going from assistant to head coach, it don't make sense, man, because all I heard was you're not going to get – I called somebody about Citadel, okay? So my last year my second to last year at Clemson, the AD at Clemson, assistant AD, Billy DeAndre, we used to meet together, and I asked him to give me interview questions. What kind of stuff you ask guys on an interview? So this is the associate AD, a guy who had been at Clemson for 25 years. For whatever reason, I started asking him 2 years before I got this job, hey, man, can we sit down at lunch and you just kind of give me a mock interview? We did that 3 or 4 times. So 5 months after that, he called me in the office one day and closed the door and said, hey, look, I'm about to interview for the Citadel. If I get it, will you come? And I'm like, yeah, man, I love to come. I love to work for you. And we had a relationship, but it was like a personal development relationship. Like we talked about the interview process. My interest started getting piqued about being a head coach because I knew that a head coach, they typically get their job between 13 and 17 years as an assistant. So once you get past 13, you move into 15, it's time to get prepared. Something about to break through, okay? That's when it happens, 13 to 17. People pay their dues. So I had a folder with about 20 head coaches. I studied their career. And so I knew, white guys, black guys, I knew what they did, how they got these jobs. And so I had a folder studying those guys. I had a big binder with a lot of different people's resume in it. So let me tell you this. I called Eddie Fogler. Eddie Fogler said it's going to be hard to get that job. He said it's easier to get Indiana than it is to get College of Charleston. He said Indiana, they got 3 candidates going to interview for the job. College of Charleston, there's going to be 100 people. So all I can say about going from assistant to head coach, guys, is this. 2 things I can say. Because some of you guys about to make that move. Man, you got it. Wherever you are, you got to be successful where you are, number one. Y'all got to get to the postseason somehow. NCAA, NIT. If we didn't get to the NIT Final Four, I don't think I get the job, okay? Another thing you got to do, you got to recruit a couple guys that are like all league players. You got to have that on your resume that you got a big time, you can recruit, okay? We got KJ McDaniels. We got so lucky. KJ McDaniels I found KJ in December going into his second semester of his senior year. He had a 1.7 and a 13 ACT. He needed 4 A's and a B. I don't even tell Brad. I just say, Brad, offer him. You offer him, and I'm going to get him to commit. This kid committed. Brad never saw him play in person. He was first team all ACC, led the ACC in block shots at 6'6", in the defensive player of the year. 29 and 15 when we beat Duke at home. I only say that because I just don't think I get the job if we didn't get to the NIT Final Four that year, and I didn't go to the NBA draft with KJ McDaniels. Like, I think those 2 things put some attention to Clemson at that time. And so that was one of the reasons I got the job. I think the other reason I got the job, and this critical, there's going to either be a search firm running the search, or there's going to be a committee on campus. The committee on campus is going to be an AD, some successful coach in that program. So, like, you might be trying to get a job say you're trying to get a job at UT Chattanooga. Well, you don't realize the soccer coach been there for 15 years, and he's had a lot of success. He's probably going to be in that room with that AD, okay? The compliance guy probably going to be in there. Then there's going to be a faculty person on campus, athletic faculty representative, okay? They're going to be in there. So I would tell you, get to know those people on your campus and just start talking to them about this relationship with them. Like, how do they think? What's their mind? What's their process? How they think about athletics? Just talk to them. Just have relationships with them, because at the end of the day, if the search firm that took this job, I don't probably get this job. So here's who was in the room: the head baseball coach, the compliance director, the faculty athletic representative, the AD, a booster, a former player that was a really great player. Okay, they all in the room. Well, the baseball coach at Clemson, me and him went to Starbucks. We had a couple Bible studies together, and we went to Starbucks. I see him in Starbucks every morning. We sit in there and talk a little bit, have a coffee. We have Bible study probably once every 2 weeks, okay? Me, him, and a couple other coaches. Well, guess what? I didn't know the baseball coach at College of Charleston, but somehow my name got involved with the job, and my buddy from Clemson, Bradley, he calls me and said, hey, look, the head coach at College of Charleston say your name coming up, but he don't know you. Are you trying to get this job? He said, because that's a good buddy of mine. That's what I'm saying. A relationship with that baseball coach on my campus was critical, because he got me with the baseball coach at the College of Charleston that was in the room. I did have John Crest, a relationship with him for a lot of years. He was in the room. But other than that, the senior faculty representative, I didn't have a relationship with him, but I infiltrated him with emails, and he broke down and started emailing me back. and I got him. And I got him to talk to me. And so when I got him to talk to me, I recruited him, and he started talking to the people in the room. So, you know, I think nothing but the grace of God, though, man, that I got this job. I do think that a lot of those relationships over the years, obviously Greg Marshall was an assistant here for Coach Kress. Coach Kress was his mentor, and then Greg Marshall was my mentor, so I could have him call Kress. The baseball coach helping me with the CFC guy. You know, just I think those relationships and just connecting with people is critical, but nothing more important than the grace of God taking over and helping me. Because the last thing I say before I open up for questions is 2 years before I got the job, something in my spirit told me, get prepared. And I say this, man, because this is the most important thing I can tell you. And while I was getting prepared, Appalachian State came open. We was in the ACC tournament. We just beat Georgia Tech. We about to play North Carolina next. And it was before, this wasn't Dustin Kern. This was the guy before him, Fox. And so I think Capo had just got let go. And I called the AD cold turkey from the ACC tournament, because it was in the process of me getting prepared, and I was getting ready. And I called him. I said, man, I can help you at Appalachian State. Talked to me for one day. And I got his number from the assistant football coach who was at Clemson with me, Justin Stepp. He's at Arkansas now. He was a wide receivers coach. So I said, Stepp, I need his number. He gave me his number. I called him. He talked to me one day. I couldn't never get him back on the phone. Then Tennessee Tech, I kind of got like a little bit of traction with them. Talked to the AD multiple times. Then I met with her at the AD, but nothing happened. And so I was like, you know, hey, man, I don't know, man. This head coaching thing will be hard. A lot of people want these jobs. So my spirit told me to get prepared. And what that preparing process meant for me was every day, guys, I'm talking about for 2 years, I was in my portfolio. I mean, to the point where my wife was like, man, you spending a lot of time working on this portfolio. What you doing? And something in my spirit was saying, get prepared. So I was writing down who guys I might want on my staff. I was writing down my recruiting philosophy. If I got certain jobs, where's going to be my recruiting base? I was writing down my academic development plan, how we're going to keep these kids successful, and just writing it down and being able to have it on paper. So if I had to articulate it, I can. I was writing down community outreach, like what I'm going to do. First 100 days, I know that's a cliche. People say, yeah, you know, you don't really have to do that. But I think living out the first 100 days and writing it does something for you mentally. And I found myself writing it and going back saying, no, there's no way I can do. Like I would go day 1 through 10, I know I got to do these things. And then I go 10 through 25, I know I got to do these things. Then I'll go back and say, no, that's probably not going to work. I need to change this and for 2 years. So when I got to the interview, guys, I'm telling you, man, between talking to our associate AD about interview questions, between preparing with this portfolio in the first 100 days, I walked in the interview and I didn't even let them talk. Like I went in there with my portfolios. I had a name of everybody in that room on that portfolio, except the president. I kept his because he wasn't in the room. Hand everybody a portfolio. And I told them, turn to page 8. Like I didn't even let them say anything. Like, and I took control of the meeting. So by the time they got into their questions, man, every question they asked me was rehearsed. And it was like, I wasn't even talking, man. It was just the Holy Spirit talking. Like I was ready for everything they threw at me. And the last thing I'll tell you about the Holy Spirit, at the end of it, I had the one portfolio left for the president. He wasn't in the room. And I was about to hand it to the AD and say, can you please give this to the president? The Holy Spirit wouldn't let me give it to him because I don't think he wanted to hire me. He wanted to hire somebody else. And he had pressure from some of his guys to hire somebody else. I don't give him the portfolio. I leave the interview, take off my suit, put on my warm-up pants. I drive 3 miles to the FedEx Kinkos and overnight this portfolio to this president. 2 days later, I'm not in the mix. I'm not one of the top 3. Richie McKay, Mike Young, somebody else. Anthony Johnson. That was 3 days later. I said I was at peace with it. I was fine with it. And then the process blew up. And the president called me and said, hey, I want you to come back and meet with me. Now, the AD didn't even know why the president was calling me, but he didn't know the president had that portfolio. There was some good stuff in there, man. I mean, I had worked hard and labored, you know, to be in position to be a guy that maybe potentially can help somebody. But you know, if I didn't send that portfolio to that president, never would have got the call back. Somebody else would have got that job. I'm convinced of that. So, you know, the Holy Spirit got to help you, man. And, you know, I'm not perfect, but I know that. I do know that, man. And so I open it up for questions. I know I kind of ramble, guys, but I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I've experienced in this 20-year process, you know, of trying to become a great coach. But again, like I said earlier, you know, because of coaching at JUCO and because of coaching D2, I was set. My mind was set. I'm gonna go win a D2 national championship or a JUCO national championship because I played those levels and I really appreciated those levels. You know, so any questions you guys got for me?
Coach Grant, Jonathan Maddox, Morehead State. What are some things you learned early in your head coaching career? Because obviously you get the College of Charleston job really late that year. You know, I think y'all win like 9 your first year, then 17. Then you have 3 straight years where you win 25, 26, you know, 24 games. What are some things you learned early in your head coaching career that kind of helped you out later down the road?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing, man, trusting the process. Just really trusting the process. And I think something that helped me, I was very fortunate to be day one with Greg Marshall at Wichita State. And I was also day one with Brad Burnell at Clemson. So I didn't go into those programs when they were already up and running. And I inherited a good program. The guy before me, man, was a really good coach. I don't know what happened. You know, the way this profession is now, you know, we can't coach guys the way we used to coach guys. But so I followed a good coach that had some time with players who we had worked hard to get them to believe in defending and rebounding. And I believe in defending and rebounding. So I went into a group of guys that the little core group they had that was a good core group. So what I learned in that is I didn't get rid of a lot of guys. I kept them guys and developed them. Like day one, I learned those were my guys from day one. I didn't get rid of guys, and I worked with them. That was number one, I think. But you know, number two was just like I said, trusting the process. I knew that the first 2 recruiting classes were critical because of what happened at Clemson and what happened at Wichita State. You know, whereas at Wichita State we had won 9 games, Greg Marshall first year there, and we were coming off a 29-4 team at Winthrop. So I knew he was a good coach, but he had gotten so vulnerable in year 1 at Wichita. We were losing so much, like to the point where, like, think about this. He would come to me and say, man, we got to change our offense. Like, none of this stuff is working. And I'm in there writing down, you know, block a mover and trying to tell him, hey, I think we should do this and do that. And he listening to me. Like, he was so vulnerable. And we put a new offense in, like, after like 5 losses in a row. And then I started telling him, I said, Coach, keep your system. We got to get you some players. And so I knew when I got the job at College of Charleston, something that was going to be critical is develop the guys you have, make them yours right away, and, man, you got to get a couple good recruiting classes. That's critical. That's information I had learned from Clemson and Wichita State.
Coach Grant, Patrick Wallace, Loyola Chicago. I know you talked a little bit about your first 100 days on the job. Can you touch a little bit on how it was a little different for you getting the job in September, a little unique situation, how those 100 days were different than, say, if you got the job in April after the conference tournament?
Yeah, so my first 100 days, that's the only thing that threw a monkey wrench in there for me. When I was doing my portfolio, my first 100 days, I had to start right after the Final Four because I said, man, most guys get their job right after the Final Four. I'm going to go to the Final Four, get me a job. So I'm going to say maybe April the 10th. That's the first day on the job. So my first 100 days was a little bit whacked out early because I got there in September. And so all of that stuff I wanted to do in April, May, and June, I couldn't do it. And so I kind of skipped a lot of steps. Like when I first got there, all I could do is love on the players. I had to love on the players. I had to develop their trust. You know, I had to, get them to believe what I'm telling them is true. And so I kind of threw a lot of stuff out the window, and then I had to recruit. But as I was loving on the players and trying to hire staff, and I was recruiting, guys, think about it, September the 2nd, I did those three things the first month, level the players, recruit, and hire staff in the first month. It's October the 10th. I look on the schedule. Dang, in a month, we got the defending national champion. We got UConn. Second game, we're going to play Dayton or Texas A&M. God, dog, we're going to West Virginia after that. Like, so it was a whirlwind. I mean, you just had to take the licks and keep it moving. And so I tell the players all the time when we were going through that, help is on the way. You know, trust the process, man. The last shall be first, the first shall be last. Like, when you hey, let me tell you something. I became a preacher that year. I had to inspire people, man. I had to give people hope because it was no hope. It was all doom and gloom. It was all despair. One of the hardest things, what it was, I kept people, like my strength coach, athletic trainer, video guy, and a full-time assistant. I kept them guys, man. And that was hard because we losing. I've never coached a game in my life before. So we were losing, and I was worried about not only losing the game, but does my people around me, like, do they even believe what I'm saying? You know, because, you know, I didn't have a chance to really develop a relationship with them. You know, so it was hitting the ground running, man. So it was interesting.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Coach Grant.
Go ahead, G. You got it.
All right. Coach Grant, Gomley at Hollywood University of South Dakota. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you're talking about, you know, when you got there, you didn't really get a chance to build relationships and you were wondering if people believed around you. Can you talk a little bit about just going into that job, what your philosophy was, and is it something that you kind of had going into it? Did it change when you started working? Can you just talk a little bit about that and how you channel that process when you got that job?
We won 9 games that year, but I was so confident. I don't want to say cocky. I was confident, and I had a belief system in how you play and how you win. I thought we were going to win 18, 19 games that first year. I said, we're going to fix it. And we lost 7 in a row. But going into it, my thing was simple. Teach these guys how to defend and rebound. And then after we get the team to miss, what do we want to do after that? So I really went in thinking defend and rebound and then miss offense. You know, what are we going to do when we get them to miss? And I tell the players all the time, they're going to miss. They're going to miss. I mean, and when we were one of the best defensive teams in America, we weren't very good. We had some injuries and things of that nature, but going into it, it was simple. Defend and rebound. Now, I did want the ball my first year. I believe that what I learned in the Missouri Valley from watching different teams, I said my personality, for me, how I played and what I would like to coach, guys who can pick up the ball full court and work them people, man. I like that. And I know I don't want to just sit back and write plays every time. I want to suffocate you with pressure. And I want you to feel it. And I want you to be bothered. And I want you to lose the ball. And we go lay it in. We do it again to you. So I knew I wanted to pick up full court and pressure, but I didn't have a chance to recruit.
Right.
So I tried to do that early on. And we had like some early success. It was fool's gold. We went to play Furman. We won like 70-45. And, we made like 14 threes. We guarded and stuff like that. And I thought we were going to just keep it rolling. And then, it didn't keep going. I mean, this kind of came off the avalanche quick. And so then I started saying, well, maybe we can't pick up full court like this, man. We don't have the personnel. A couple guards got hurt. My best guard, kid named Stitt at the time, he was dealing with a back injury. Like he could have, if we had stayed healthy, maybe we can do it. But I was stubborn. And Joe Cheeley had a bad leg at the time. And I was stubborn. And maybe that team needed to zone more. Maybe we needed to zone press more. And maybe we'd have won 4 more games. But I went into it just thinking we're going to defend and rebound. And we're going to teach these guys how to act the right way on campus and in the community. That'll be the starting point. And we did that.
Right.
We just didn't win a lot.
Appreciate that.
Alvin, what's up, man?
What up, Coach Grant, man? He kind of asked the question, but I was just wondering, like, Coach Marshall had a lot of success. How much of Coach Marshall culture did you take with you to College of Charleston?
Yeah, well, let me say this. two things about that. Number one, when I left Marshall to go work for Clemson, and Saddi said that you need to know who you're working for. Like, because I left Marshall to go to Clemson, and Marshall wanted, now this is phrase, it's a phrase. Now he wanted a chip-tooth liquor drinker. Think about how that sounds. You know what I mean? Rebound at 12 feet. Quick twitch muscle fiber. These guys got to be tough, okay? Brad wanted, can he see? Does he have great IQ? Does he have feel? Like, can he shoot it? You know, so I go from one to the other, and I struggled going from Wichita to Clemson because I was trying to get Brad what got us success at Clemson, and Brad didn't really want that at the time. And so, so I would say, man, I have taken a lot of Greg with me here, and that's given me great confidence, you know, that we have won so much, and with underappreciated players and tough guys and guys that wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves, team guys, and guys with humility and guys who like to defend. So we always felt like, hey, look, if he got certain tools, we can develop them. Like we skilled developers. We sweat with guys and we get them better. So I think that, you know, a lot of what we do here, full court man-to-man, half court man-to-man, 2-2-1 back to a 1-1-3, a lot of our set plays, man, is just Greg has brainwashed me on how the game should be played. And I take some twists from Brad Brunell, because Brad is an unbelievable coach. If you think about what he's done at Clemson in that league, you know. So, but a lot of us was Greg, because I worked with him for 6 years, man. Just the identity of your program, how it should look. People shouldn't want to play you. Like, you know, you should work so hard that when people play against you, they don't want to play against you, you know. So that's kind of was his mentality, and I hope our teams look like that. I don't know. I mean, we try.
What was that quote, Coach? Chip tooth liquor drinker?
A chip tooth liquor drinker.
Gotcha.
That look like, yeah. Not really, but that's a phrase, you know what I mean?
Hey, Coach, I can attest when we were at PC and y'all beat us like by 20 points and we scored 40 points and you out-rebounded us about 1,000 to 5. Your teams aren't fun to play against, and they definitely look like that.
Well, no, I appreciate that, man. And I remember that because, shoot, y'all gave us a run for our money, and that's when I knew Presbyterian was going to be really good. I have so much respect for how you guys had coached that team, where the AD at Elon called me, and he wanted to give him a guy in the area to recommend. Like, he called me. I'm in Houston recruiting, and I said, man, call Dustin Kearns, man. And so I think Dustin could have maybe got a job if he didn't get App State, but I respected him so much, and he was telling me he wanted a guy in that area. But because of that game, that's the way I felt about it.
Coach, I know we got a lot of young assistants, young aspiring guys want to move up in this profession. You haven't been at all the levels. I have an opinion, but this is your time, but can you speak to kind of the do's and the don'ts of trying to make that next jump? You talk, you know, about building a relationship and, you know, reaching out to guys, but there are some don'ts, you know, that you probably shouldn't be trying to do in order to move.
Don't take a job because you delivered a player. That was one of mine. Don't, because if that player don't work out, the coach gonna look at you crazy every day. Like, and he's gonna be wanting to fire you. Like, so I would say if you're gonna go take a job and you attach to a player, you better make sure that it's right. That's a big one for me. You know, I think that don't self-promote to try to get a job. You know, one thing I would say, now I've been fortunate where I never interviewed. I mean, I interviewed, but it really wasn't an interview. Like, I never looked for a job. I always got a call about a job, you know, and so I think if you work hard and you take care of the man that you're working for, and you are egoless with the other assistants, because see, the other assistants will be trying to promote you too and tell people about how great you are to work with. But if you have an ego and they don't enjoy working with you, they're gonna tell people that too. Like, man, our staff chemistry ain't that good, and that's the worst thing you can be mixed into, that it's hard to work with you. You always trying to get attention. So be pure about your motives. I did write down something I'm gonna share with y'all. The best assistant that I ever had work for me. Now it's hard now because I wrote down one guy that was the best assistant that ever worked for me, but then the other guy, I was like, dang, that might be a tie. But here's some of the characteristics, man. Number one, loyal. Okay, best assistants. I've been a head coach for 6 years. Okay, loyal. Number one. Number two, always in the locker room. Always in the locker room. Like, so if I got a meeting with the players coming up at 2, it was like clockwork. He would be down there 1:45. Now some of that is he probably looking to make sure everybody on time, make sure everybody there. But the third characteristic, always had the guys laughing. Always had them loose. Always had them laughing. Like, you don't have to be the head coach as an assistant. You don't have to be so hard on the guy. Now, there's going to be some stuff you got to do. Guy miss class. You might have to bring him in and run him. I've done that before. You know, one of the worst experiences, I ran a guy, and he tore his daggum Achilles. I'm trying to be the head coach running the guy because he missed class. Like, and so what I'm saying to you is always have them laughing. Always in the locker room. Loyal. Love to sweat. And what I mean by love to sweat, a good assistant, that subservient mentality, that attitude, coach, you need me to practice today? We got a couple guys banged up. I'm good. I'm in good shape. Like Saddi said, get in good shape. Can't serve nobody if you're in good shape. So get in good shape. That's okay. I'll come out, be a part of the 2-3 zone. Like, your pride shouldn't be so high. You shouldn't be looking at the other assistants, like trying to say, well, why one of them guys ain't doing it? Like, you go do it. So the best assistant, he loved to sweat. The other thing about the best assistant I worked for, he beat me to the office. But when he beat me to the office, it wasn't for me. He was in the gym. Like, when I got to the office, I heard the ball bouncing, and he was in the gym with a couple of our players. And he wasn't taxing them. Hey, man, let's work on this footwork. Let's do this. Let's make a few shots. So what would happen is, when I walk in there and I see that, he got the kid sweating a little bit, the kid talking to him, he laughing. Now, as soon as I get in the office, he got some nuggets for me. He telling me, hey, coach, here's something you might want to do, such and such dealing with this, such and such. He had such a great pulse. Here's another critical one. He didn't bring me a lot of new ideas. He supported the ideas that I already had. Like, so, like, he wasn't always bringing me, coach, this end out of bounds, play, this play, that play, this play. Now, if I asked him, hey, man, I want you to go study early offense, man, I don't like what we're doing, we ain't getting the right shots, he might say, well, coach, look at these clips. But most times when he brought me basketball stuff, it was like our stuff, the stuff that I had already believed in, the stuff that I was putting in as a system. But he would say, coach, what do you think about these breakdown drills, though, man? These guys ain't executing as good. Instead of him saying, run this play, he was saying, these guys ain't executing these plays as good. Coach, what do you think this breakdown drill, this could be really good for this 3 series we're trying to run. I thought that was critical. You know, and that's probably, let me see, that's probably the main things that I think about, you know, but he wasn't trying to impress nobody, man. Like, you know, we had good laughs on the bus, and, you know, we had good laughs after games, and he had the players laughing in the airport. And now sometimes I'll get pissed, and I'll be like, damn, I don't feel like we need to be laughing. I lost 2 games in a row. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and here we go into this next road trip, and he got them laughing in the airport. But then we win 3 in a row. He probably needed to loosen them up because, you know, the head coach going to be a little bit tight. I'm not tight by nature, but I'm the head coach, so I'm tight sometimes. I'm going to get pissed sometimes in a shoot around or something going to irk me. So, like, the assistant, he don't need to be me. He don't need to be that demeanor all the time. He need to be making sure that he got these guys loose and he got these guys a relationship with these guys and he can make them laugh and make me laugh some too. But then the other thing about the best assistants that I break down a lot now. So, I mean, I got this from Greg Marshall and Brad, but like, if you come to our practice, I mean, the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you know, after I get them going with some kind of team shooting, my assistants at baskets, they coaching and teaching like this. And I always tell them, hey, look, you the head coach right now. I want you sweating. I want you, if the guys ain't doing what they need to do, make them do push-ups. I don't want you cussing at them and going crazy, okay, early in practice. But, hey, man, do 10 push-ups. You ain't cutting hard enough. Like, And so they get to coach a lot. The best assistants I've had, I don't have to go to their basket all the time. Because, see, when I do that and I split up, and I do it like 3 times in practice, early, middle, and end. Right before the, at the end, I'll take over. But I do it at least 3 times. If I got to come to your basket all the time, that pisses me off. I need a break. I need to be able to watch. I need to be able to listen. And I need to be able to go encourage some of these players. So now that's when you're the head coach. You got to be able to understand, okay, you got to be a little stern in that. That's my time. These 15 minutes, we working on this. This is my time. So, that's some of the characteristics of the best coaches I've been around, man. But they don't have an ego. They don't have an ego. They ain't looking for credit. I always tell my staff, like, you shouldn't be around the AD looking for credit and different donors. Like, yeah, talk to the donors, talk to the AD. But you ain't looking for credit. Like, the only credit you should be looking for is we winning. That's it. Even in recruiting, I tell them, only credit you should be looking for is we getting good players. Because if 3 of you guys on my staff and all y'all got this kid y'all trying to get, like, you kind of really want to get your kid, to get a kid on the board. But the other guy's kid might be the best fit for us. So I think y'all communicating with each other and watching film and talking about the kids, and like, y'all should be saying, man, what do you think? What's one of these kids best for coach? You know what I mean? And then y'all just have a little healthy argument and say, you're right, man, you're right. We probably should go after this kid. Like, I think that's critical.
Hey, Coach Grant, I have a question for you, man.
Yes, sir.
Rashard Richardson, I'm a graduate assistant here at Tulane. I'm currently transitioning from the JUCO world, man. And first and foremost, I want to say you're doing a great job back at home in Charleston, man. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. You spoke about the Midnight Basketball League, and, man, I remember playing in that downtown on the east side of Charleston, man. It's a great league, and I know we definitely should probably bring that back in the future, man. But speaking of the do's and don'ts, man, as I continue to, like, transition in this business, coming from the JUCO world now to the Division I level as a graduate assistant, what would you say some of the things you did as a graduate assistant to help you prepare yourself to transition for a Division I assistant position?
Well, I think the biggest thing is really get great relationship with the players, man. So like, your head coach ain't dealing with, like if your head coach got to deal with, oh, this kid didn't go to class or that kid didn't go to class. I think, like, if you can get the relationships of the players and get their trust and just get those guys to try to live the right way and be the best version of themselves. Yeah, some guys gonna smoke a little weed. That's all. Some guys gonna drink a little. Some guys gonna chase girls all the time. That's gonna happen. But, like, they need to be talking to you about that stuff. Like, they need to be, and you need to be able to listen to them. Listen a lot, and then say, man, hey, look. And then you gotta be able to turn them around. Like, you gotta try to turn them guys around, because if you can take some of that off the head plate with the players making good decisions on campus and in the classroom, you already was a big-time assistant that year. Okay, so they don't need you to really recruit, probably. They need you to help with these players. Like, these guys got to go to class. These guys got to be on time. Like, if you're the GA and the head coach come down to a meeting at 2, man, you should take it personal if a player ain't there at 1:56, like 1:55. Like, if the head coach walk in there, there's no way you as a GA that's got a relationship with these guys that they ain't there. Like, I'm looking at my staff like, where the hell are they? Where they at? What's going on? I always walk in late. I come in at 2:02. If we leaving on the bus at 3:30, I'm coming at 3:33, 3:32. I give them 2 minutes, and now I'll get on, because I want everything to be right when I get there. I think that's the biggest thing for you. Then always go to the assistants and say, what can I help you with? Like, don't always just assume I'm gonna wait for the coaches to give me something. Like, you should be busy. A GA should be busy all the time. You shouldn't have a lot of free time. You should be busy all the time. So projects the coaches need, I would say learn how to do graphics, learn how to do a lot of video, talk to people, call different people. I mean, I think the way this world, this profession, like, a kid, rather you can recruit a kid and sign him if you talk to him twice, but you sending them graphics and you know how to deal with them on Instagram, and, like, you don't even need to talk to them. These kids, they're different these days. So learn social media, learn graphics and things of that nature. And then help the players do right. Go to class, be on time, work hard. Like help the coach with some of those small things that way. Good question though.
Appreciate that, Coach.
Mm-hmm. Now y'all know we could be on here all night, so don't be scared to ask a question. I'm the last one, so you know.
I got a question. Jonathan Finkel here. I know I've heard a few people. I've been on a few calls to talk about this, but could you talk about kind of figuring out the right job or the right fit? Like, how do you go about that? Like, what kind of things do you like? If you're in an interview, how do you detect like this might not be a good job? What are keys or signs of a good job, bad job?
Yeah, for me, man, it was all about the people. Like, I didn't want to work for bad people, you know. So I was very particular. Like, now, obviously, when you're going from a GA to a Division I don't know if you can make that decision on who you're gonna go work for. If you got an opportunity to D1, you might just take it. But I was very fortunate, man, just working for good people. Like, I never had to compromise my integrity. Like, I never really had to cheat for a player. I never had to lie, you know, to people. The worst thing I've had to do is I get a kid to commit, and then my boss tell me, no, you know, we can't take it right now. I got to go. And that pissed me off. I got to go turn it around. I got to go talk to this mom and this dad and this kid and tell them we can't take them. You know, I've been in that situation about 3 or 4 times. I didn't like that. I'm like, I want to tell the boss, you call them, you know? And so, but that was hard for me. And so I think, but working for good people and then, you know, just praying, man, like asking God to order your steps, man, because, you know, I deal with that now. People have been telling me the last 3 years, oh man, you about to take this job, Wake Forest, Ole Miss, this and that. And it's like, for me, I don't want to go nowhere that God don't want me. I'm scared to go by myself. So if I'm going somewhere, I need God to send me there. Like God sent me to Charleston. I'm telling you, he did it. I mean, so for me, that's my approach. I think ask God to order your steps. Figure out what it is that you want in the next 5 years. I think that's key. Like I do that now. What do I want in the next 5 years? Well, I know I want to take a team deep into the NCAA tournament. I know that. You know, can I get to the Final Four from here? Maybe. So, you know, I want to do that. So, I mean, so for you got to figure out what do you want in the next 5 years? And then if you figure that out, man, then you probably got to even have a few jobs that's in your jurisdiction, meaning there's a certain area that you got relationships. What jobs in my jurisdiction that maybe I can get, that I can impact these people, and then maybe develop some relationship with them coaches, you know, but don't take a bad job for money. Now, I would tell you that. I really haven't had to turn down a lot of jobs, but I have as an assistant, somebody told me that quality of life was worth $35,000. So if you add that up, somebody told me if you work for a boss and he paying you 120, but you miserable, your family miserable, you don't like it there, he don't fit right with your spirit, you better off making 85 with a guy that's really fit you and his spirit is right with yours and you're happy. And so quality of life is worth $35,000 to $40,000.
Coach Grant, Sean Tucker, Cambridge South Dorchester High School. I got a question for you. Going back to the Citadel, do you think that coach moving forward put more value into his staff that he had because he lost maybe a good coach like yourself and that he didn't play that game of, you know, maybe I'll give him a little bit of money to kind of keep him here. And he realized that you did have leverage and moving forward, he can understand like, hey, this good coach might leave if I play this game.
Yeah, I don't think he really thought about it as much. I don't think his personality was one where he worried about things like that. He was really a good dude now. And he took care of me, you know. Like he would do stuff like this. We going to the Final Four. I remember going to New Orleans, Final Four, and he gave me $20 to $50 cash. Like, you know, I ain't making no money. So he said, man, you might need this. I know y'all gonna hang out and do some different things. So them little small gestures meant something to me. So he was a good person, a good man. I just think that I was young. He took for granted that he had gave me an opportunity at a really young age. I got a D1 job from the GA position. So he probably felt like, you know, I'm paying him $10,000. I'm going to get him up to 14, 15. So he probably thought he was taking care of me. And he probably didn't think I had another opportunity. I think when the other opportunity came is when it shocked his system. And he just jumped it all the way up. And so, so I don't think he necessarily like thought about that. I just think at the timing of it, and again, maybe that was God's plan for me. I needed this time to go to Winthrop, time to do something different. Great man. We still talk now, and it's just the timing of it with the opportunity to present itself at Winthrop. It just was an interesting timing thing. Good question. Anybody else? We got a couple more before we get off here. Because, what I would say, man, in a nutshell, now, and this might be good for you to do. I wrote down the other day, why do I coach? I just really sat down and I said, why do I coach? That was one of the things I wrote down. And I really meditated on it. And number two, I wrote down, who are the people that have really impacted me in this profession? And man, when you write down the people that really impacted you in this profession, reach out to them. Like, it's a lot of people that help you. Don't burn them bridges. Make sure you continue to have those relationships. Let people know you appreciate them. But the most important thing I can say, because see, some of you are going to be head coaches in the next 2 years. Some of you are going to be head coaches in the next 10 years. Some of you are going to be assistants your whole career. I know some really good assistants. At the end of the day, we all doing the same thing. We're trying to change the life of some young man. Now, I got 3 sons, so I know how critical that is, 13, 12, and 9. You're trying to change the life of some young man. You're trying to make an impact that's going to last on his life, help him be a good person so he can go be a good husband and father one day. He can be a good citizen. So I would say be pure, be authentic, be real, be true to yourself. Don't try to pretend. It's easier to be real. Like, I don't pretend, I probably tried to pretend a little bit when I first got the job, but I don't pretend. I am who I am. And like Steve Harvey said, I was who I was and I am who I am. And I go with both of them people, so I would say be real, but it's about the players. That's it. It ain't about title. It ain't about staff, positioning. It ain't about the head coach. It's about the players. And I worked for a really tough boss one time who was very emotionally imbalanced, where he could come in the office one day and have donuts for everybody. The other day, he might want to slam the door and flip over the desk. And one of the things that I learned, and that this is when I learned it was about the players. I had a Bible verse, man. Work with enthusiasm, as if you're working for the Lord and not for man. And that was critical for me, because regardless of how he came through the door, I still got to work with enthusiasm, because the players need to see me. Like, they need me. All right? If I think the man crazy, the players think he's crazy. So work with enthusiasm, as if you're working for the Lord and not for man. I think that's a critical key for an assistant. That way, it doesn't matter what the head coach emotions is, you always even keel. You walking right through. If it's turbulence, if it's a storm, you walking right through it. If the rainbow out, you stay in the course. Nothing don't really phase you. And then sweat with the players. I pick them up full court and work them. I used to do at Clemson. I met this lady, Debbie Antonelli. She came to our practice. She was about to do our North Carolina State game. She asked Brad. She was like, Brad, who's number 13 right there? I had a jersey on. And she said, that motherfucker can play. But I was out there picking them guys up full court. And I was a little younger. That was about 10 years ago. But picking them guys, if you're a young assistant, man, you got to sweat. You got to sweat. You got to work. You got to you got to show the players and show the staff that it ain't about title. It's about getting guys better. And it's about, exerting that energy to help these kids develop. So that's what I got for you, man. I hope I helped somebody. Treat people right, work hard, have faith. Without faith, well, I'm telling you, without faith, I'm awful. I'm not very good without faith and without my protection and without the Holy Spirit. I'm just telling you right now, I can't even imagine. So, if you can get you a relationship with God, man, and ask him to order your steps, I'm just telling you, I'm not very good without it. I won't meet with my players without praying, or my staff. And so I certainly don't want to take no job. I don't want to try to go get a job. I want God to send me somewhere. If I'm going to leave, send me somewhere. Or he may say, no, you ain't going nowhere. Stay there. Stay there for 20 years. But I want to do what he want me to do. That's where I'm at. If you need anything, man, you can reach out. I mean, obviously, a lot of you guys know me, and I love to stay in touch, whether it be through text, whether it be call, email, whatever. If you need me, man, reach out. We really need to try to help each other in this profession. For so many years, you know, I feel like everybody just, it's like crabs in a basket, man. Everybody just trying to get something, and you're scared to share ideas, and you don't want to help each other. So I say that with all sincerity. You know, we need to help each other. White, black, don't matter the race. Just we in the same profession, and we need to help each other the best we can. And so again, if I can do anything for anybody, if you want to talk to me about anything we discussed tonight, or just something pop up on your mind, man, don't hesitate to track me down or reach out. You can get with Bentley, and he can find my number. Curtis Wheeler on here. A lot of guys can find my number, but you got to call Curtis because he got all them players. And then David Bentley, you know, you can get in contact with him. So if you need me, reach out to one of these guys, and let's talk. I mean, let's talk. I'll do all I can to help you.
Awesome. Well, shoot. I appreciate that, Coach Grant, and obviously Coach Moynihan, Coach Washington earlier. This was really good stuff, and this is the thing I think makes ours most genuine panelists. Kind of let it take a life of its own, and you know, obviously I see Dre Gray. The same thing is kind of letting it take a life of its own. I think being genuine is the realest thing. So, yeah, I appreciate our three guests, and obviously the 48 or I guess 45 other people on here, and appreciate everyone that joined in. And this week, and obviously if you want to get in touch with any of these coaches, you can shoot me a text. I'll get you their numbers if and they want to put them in the chat or whatnot. So, again, appreciate everybody joining on tonight, and our three guests for sharing. And hope y'all have a great rest of your week. And we'll be back again next week with 3 new guests. So, y'all have a good evening, and thanks again.
Thanks, Dave, for having me on, buddy.
Thank you.
I appreciate